Hey, mahal everyone! Welcome back again to the Broadway Saiyan YouTube channel. I am your host 40 and we are back with another video on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, focusing again on the global version of the game. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at CID HIGHWIND, the next character event coming out, this time good or not good. So it's going to be a little bit of a deeper dive on what he brings to global as a brand new character, and whether or not he's going to be good or not compared to the rest of the cast that we currently have. So, CID HIGHWIND, good or not good? So what does he bring to global? So he's going to be another strong, flexible damage dealer and a base ability changer. And he's going to be another wind elemental specialist. So what I mean by that is that he's strong because as we looked at his character preparation video that I made, both of his abilities give him a unique buff that increases his attack and max brave. And being that he is a damage dealer, this is extremely good that he does this, and the fact that they are a unique buff makes it even better. And the reason why I say he's flexible is because his dragon ability, which is his HP ability, that it changes into dragon when you use his dragon dive ability, it allows him to bypass weaknesses, which is very similar to another dragoon that we currently have named KAIN. And then he has that wind elemental attached to a majority of his abilities, so if you're fighting against an enemy that is weak to wind, well, CID is a great option for this. Again, he's a strong self-buffer with options to self-sustain, so he can heal himself with Dragon, and then he's a strong self-buffer because his buffs are unique buffs. Both of them are unique buffs, they're not generic, so meaning that can't be pushed off, and the only way for the enemy to remove them is to dispel them. And he's fast range DPS, so he's actually pretty fast. In the speed tier, he is rank S as far as being a fast character. So I chose to compare him to KAIN HIGHWIND because they do have some similarities. So we're going to go ahead and compare CID's damage output compared to KAIN. So this is taking into account that you have both of their weapon passes. They're 15 CP and 35 CP. So if we take a look at Hyper Jump, CID's Command 1, the damage output on that is 250%. And also, it provides him that unique buff called Jump Gear, and this unique buff with the passive grants him a 40% attack up and a 50% max brave up for 6 turns. His second ability, Dragon Dive, this is going to be his brave plus HP attack, 180% damage output with a weapon passive. It also gives him that another unique buff that grants him this time 30% attack up and 60% max brave up for 6 turns. And also, let's not forget, it also has that ability to dispel 1 buff on the enemy. Now let's take a look at KAIN's damage output. So KAIN, his jump 3 is straight up an HP attack, so it actually doesn't deal any brave damage, but the important factor for this ability is that it gives him that unique buff prior to the Dragoons that grants him a 30% attack up and max brave up for 6 turns. So it's 30% attack and 30% max brave up for 6 turns. And then his Gungnir, which is his brave plus HP attack, 190% damage output. Grants 2 generic buffs, so this time they're 2 separate buffs. One is 30% attack up, and the other one is 30% max brave up for 6 turns. So what is the verdict? So CID is literally KAIN 2.0. So I'm sorry, KAIN fans, but CID is KAIN 2.0. His buffs are better not only percentage-wise, so if you take a look at it, with both of CID's unique buffs active, he's granting himself 70% attack and 110% max brave up for 6 turns. Whereas KAIN, with both of his buffs active, and one of them only being the unique buff, is 60% attack up and 60% max brave up. So not only are they better percentage-wise, but they're both unique, meaning that these can stack with other support. So CID actually works well with like Saz, who's still currently in global the best offensive buffer in the game. So with Saz's buffs on top of CID's unique buffs, you're looking at a 130% attack up and a 170% max brave up, which is insane. And to top it off, CID's Hyper Jump already outclasses KAIN's Gungnir for just raw damage output by 60% additional. So, sorry KAIN fans, I do like KAIN better as a character, it's himself, as far as his lore, but with DFFOO, CID is the superior HIGHWIND as far as what they both can do when we're comparing them. So, what are CID's pros and cons? So, his pros are he is amazing non-selfish buffs. So again, he can work well with other buffers because both of his buffs are unique. So both of them are framed, so they don't contradict. They're not going to be removed when you use a better buff than them because they are unique to him. Strong damage output from the get-go with his passive. So 250% on his ability 1 and 180% on his ability 2. He's again fast, so he's at the fast speed tier. He can self-sustain himself, which is something that not a lot of like damage dealing units have. And being released slightly early compared to when he was released in JP means that he's gonna have a little bit more relevance compared to when he was already released in JP back when he was released in JP. Now, what are his cons? So, because we know level 60 is coming soon, unfortunately, even with his earlier release, his time in the limelight is still gonna be short because that level 60 is just right around the corner. Outside of his HP and speed, again, his base, attack, defense, initial brave, and max brave are really low. So he kind of balances himself out, which is why I think they gave him 2 unique buffs to attack that give him both a buff to attack and max brave. It's because his actual important stats for offense, which is attack and max brave, are on the low side. And then having a wind element on a majority of his abilities could actually be seen as a detriment at times, because what if you're fighting up against an enemy and you're using Cid, and yeah, he has a high damage output and great buffs, but if that enemy is resistant to wind, kind of hurts his DPS, and then he doesn't have a wind imperil, so I think that's something that he could have been given because he is a wind unit. If he had that, it would have alleviated his issues with dealing with an enemy that resists wind, but because he doesn't have that, does kind of hurt him a little bit. So that's going to be some pros and cons for Cid. So some tips and final thoughts on our boy Cid. So if you're going to be using him, definitely want to slap on some attack and max brave artifact passives because they are a definite must to maximize his damage output. You want to pair him up with a strong buffer, and even a strong debuffer helps him a lot because he is a damage dealer. Some sample teams that I gave are Cid, Saz, because Saz is the best offensive buffer in Global, and then Fujin, because Fujin actually does Wind Imperil, so it'll help out Cid's wind damage. And then afterwards, another team you could use is Cid, Irvine, because Cid is a ranged DPS damage dealer, and Irvine does that have that ranged Imperil debuff, and then you can obviously throw Saz in there too as well. Again, be aware that he will be benched somewhat soon, because even after he comes out, because level 60 will be coming out soon, but that doesn't mean that he's just going to be sitting on the bench, because we still have to wait for like more level 60 to come out. So I still feel like he can still be used, but he won't be as useful once level 60 comes out. But on the bright side, he does later get an awakening, and he does get an EX weapon, which makes him a lot better. So overall thoughts, Cid, good or not good? He is definitely good. Again, he is KAIN 2.0. The only thing that really hurts him again are 4 of his base stats are low, and he is cutting it close to level 60 coming out soon, and since he doesn't get it right away, he's just going to be benched soon. But overall, he's a great character, a good character to pull on, especially if you're a player that's lacking options for DPS, so he's a good option for a good DPS unit. Alright guys, well this is going to be my video on Cid for good or not good. Hopefully it was helpful. Again, if you do guys find my videos helpful, consider hitting that subscribe button, turning on that notification bell, that way you are notified when I post a new video on the channel. Once again, I am 40 the Broadway saying stay tuned for the next video, and mahal everyone.